Welcome back to I Read X-Men, Episode 2, where we will be discussing X-Men number 6 through 10. With me today...
Caitlin.
Hi, Caitlin. Welcome back.
It's good to be here.
Are you excited to be talking about some more X-Men?
I'm super excited.
Now, you didn't necessarily read these issues this time around.
No, I read them a long, long time ago.
So we're gonna go with the basis of that you're being reintroduced to them, and I'm gonna take like the storyteller role and tell you about them, and you're gonna interject with your thoughts.
Okay.
All right. Well, let's jump in with X-Men number 6. Submariner joins the evil mutants. This was released in July of 1964. And right there on the cover, we can see that Marvel Girl has gone and got herself a new mask. This time she kind of wanted a little bit more hair exposed, maybe. She's very fashion forward.
Gotta keep it exciting.
I guess so. We start this issue with the X-Men at their school, and they're all eating breakfast. So a weird kind of fun fact is that Iceman, we see him using his ice powers to make pie a la mode. But a la mode means with ice cream, and really he's just putting ice on his pie. I think
pie a la Ice Cube.
I think Stan Lee, who wrote this, was unfamiliar about what ice powers could do. Because in another one, in X-Men 3, we saw him making a milkshake with his ice powers. So apparently, besides making ice, he can also make dairy-based...
cream-based products.
He's the next great baker. Sweet
genius.
we see Professor X reading his newspaper, and he's reading an article about the Submariner and wonders if the Submariner is a mutant. And of course, he wants him as an ally.
Is the Submariner a mutant?
He is, actually. He is Marvel's first mutant. He's half man, half Atlantean. He's basically immortal. He has super strength, and he also has little tiny wings on his feet that allow him to fly. And of course, he can also breathe underwater.
Okay.
So, Professor X is, he wants him as an ally, but of course, so does Magneto. Magneto and the Brotherhood, they're sitting there in their new headquarters, and which of course is on an uncharted island. As you do. And, he's thinking the same exact thing as Professor X. They're kind of on the same page here. So, they both want the Submariner to join their team. So, what Magneto does, which is interesting, is he projects his astral form, and he travels to the bottom of the ocean. As it says, it's stated that his mind is second in the world to Professor X's.
Okay, I was just going to ask how he projects his astral form.
Earlier, in the early issues, they were just like, he has a strong mutant mind, so he had this innate ability. I mean, if you really wanted to boil it down so it made sense, you could say he's traveling along the electromagnetic spectrum, using his magnetic powers to do that.
Science.
Yes, but in this one, no, he can project his astral form too.
Okay.
Because he has a strong mutant mind, according to Stan Lee.
Okay.
But so he travels to the bottom of the ocean, and guess what? So does Professor X. So, but he sees that Magneto's doing this as well. So he's just like, I'm gonna let Magneto kind of do his thing. So Magneto finds his underwater kingdom. And he catches him while he's having a tantrum about the surface world, as the Submariner usually is doing in these earlier ones. He was mainly the enemy of the Fantastic Four when he started out. He always falls in love with some surface girl, and he gets mad.
Reverse Ariel.
Yes. It was originally Sue Storm, and he wanted to take her as his wife. Come back to my kingdom. But she was like, no, I'm good. And so he gets mad at the surface world and wants to declare war on him. And so he's lamenting from that as we meet him right here.
Okay.
So Magneto decides not to approach him, and so he talks with another Atlantean that he sees there in his palace, and he tells him that he wants him to deliver a message to Namor, the Submariner. So in exchange for him doing this, Magneto claims that this Atlantean guy can then become the new ruler of Atlantis when the Submariner leaves to join his Brotherhood. It's a very empty promise, but the guy he jumps at the chance to rule Atlantis once the Submariner's gone. So then we cut back to the professor with the X-Men, and he says that he knows where Magneto's new base is. So he gets the X-Men to charter a sailboat, and then
Is it the big magnet?
they head out. It is the island that has a gigantic
So subtle.
magnet on it, because they don't do anything small
No.
back in the day. We cut back to the Submariner, and he's convinced to go meet Magneto. He likes the idea. He kind of wants to see someone that's as powerful as him.
So is he a half mutant?
No, he's a mutant. A mutant is anybody who is born with the X gene.
Right. I guess, but how is he ruling Atlantis?
Because his mother was an Atlantean princess, or the queen.
Okay, and then so his dad
Is from the surface.
from the
world.
surface, and then he just happened to become a mutant. So he's a mutant.
So he's a half breed. So he's still a mutant.
Okay, he's a mudblood.
Sure, if you want to think of it that way. So, yes.
Okay, so he inherited Atlantis from his mom. Okay, got it. I'm on board.
So the Submariner is going to meet Magneto, and he's impressed by his power. He's impressed by his gigantic magnet island. And so Magneto, to sweeten the pot, he wants to use the Scarlet Witch to woo the Submariner.
Ugh.
So what she does is she reaches toward him, but oh no, she accidentally releases a hex bolt. And so she causes a lot of destruction, but then, he saves the day with his raw strength, and they have kind of a bonding moment. So, but then, out of nowhere, to interrupt that, the Angel arrives because he was out scouting for the X-Men, and he starts a quick little fight because the X-Men have arrived. And so what Magneto does that is so great is he uses this gigantic magnet. It's not just a magnet for show.
No.
He destroys... Somehow he makes a force beam on their ship that destroys their wooden ship with a magnetic force beam. And it just blows to pieces. Great piece of artwork there. And so the professor is saved by Beast treading water. He's holding him up over the water. It's the ultimate lifeguarding skill. But then Iceman makes an ice bridge on the top of the water, and they all get to the island safely. But when the X-Men arrive, that's when the battle truly begins. So when the X-Men arrive to the island, Cyclops finds the giant magnet, and he tries to destroy it. But then Quicksilver attacks him. And then Marvel Girl, she has found a great way to stop Quicksilver, and that's just by lifting him into the air and spinning him around really quick so he gets really dizzy. And so the Scarlet Witch starts to fear for her brother, and then Magneto starts to yell at her like, come on, man. It's like, stop thinking about him. You got to think about me. Think about our survival. But then the Submariner hears this, and then he turns on Magneto because he's yelling at the Scarlet Witch. He sees a damsel in distress, and he stands up to the bully. So he's
he's got his new Earth girl.
Good guy Submariner. And so he fights Magneto, and then Magneto changes his tune. He's like, oh, this guy is not so great. And, he's just a strong brute. And so Magneto then calls the retreat, and he leaves with his team. The Scarlet Witch stays, and then Magneto says, I don't need you. And so, only he must be safe. So he's like, I don't care about you. I'm in this for me. So see you later, toots. And then the Submariner decides that he's done with all of this, and he leaves. But then he's attacked by Magneto again and his gigantic magnet. But the Submariner overcomes the power of this magnet, and he destroys it while being caught up in the beam, flexing his giant muscles, sending a power backlash that just destroys the whole thing. the Submariner, like a boss, just then walks back into the ocean, and Magneto and the Brotherhood retreat in another one of Magneto's awesome Magneto planes. And then Quicksilver and the Scarlet Witch join them, even though a couple panels ago they were just like, they thought that they had escaped it all.
Yeah.
But then Professor X remarks that they must be under some unknown sway of Magneto. So is this another power that Magneto has with his magnetism?
With his super
Can he
strong
attract people?
Oh, waka waka.
Yeah. And then, so that's pretty much the end of issue 6. But for the ladies, we're treated with an extra special pinup page of Cyclops.
Oh my.
Signed, "Sincerely yours, Scott Summers."
Slim.
You gonna hang this up in your locker at school, Caitlin?
Totally. Totes. I had a dreamboat. Look at that beam.
She's of course talking about his optic blast and nothing else.
Yes.
Mind out of the gutter.
Optic blast.
So moving on to X-Men number 7, that is The Return of the Blob, released in September of 1964. Now this is touted as saying it has the surprise of the year. It's jam-packed issue where you're going to meet the X-Men's new leader.
Say what?
I know. And it's also co-featuring the evil you-know-who's, which, of course, is the Brotherhood. Stanley, he has a way with words. Starting off issue 7, we got a really cool picture that, it's the graduation of the X-Men. And so they're taking their class photo. They have completed prep school. So prep school is pretty much like the equivalent of high school.
High school.
Yeah, they all have their GEDs at this point. So so now they're all kind of, this may seem like, oh, they're done with school, but no, they're moving on to further studies. They're in their they're basically starting college now.
Okay.
And of course, in this one, Marvel Girl has yet another new mask.
She does. Look at that.
So now we can see all of her hair, and it looks like she's just wearing a mask to hide her eyes. Seems like it keeps getting toned back with each issue. She's finding herself.
She's changing with the times.
She's finding herself.
A new mask for a new day.
Yeah. I mean, do you wear the same pair of clothes every day?
No.
Well, these guys technically do, but she doesn't want to do that.
Right.
That's okay. So Xavier informs them that
She's really cozied up with Xavier. Sorry, didn't have to interject there, but yikes. Okay.
maybe that's where he's getting led on.
Maybe.
Listen to our last podcast to know what we're talking about. So Xavier informs his X-Men that he's going to be leaving to tend to some, quote, unfinished business. So he says that he's going to select a new leader from amongst them soon. So we're left with that tiny little cliffhanger until we are found across town in a mansion, and we see that the Brotherhood are having a meeting there. Mastermind is hitting on the Scarlet Witch, but she turns him down basically because she thinks he's gross.
And he is.
Which he is kind of gross.
Gross.
And then Magneto arrives, and he says that they need to stop the X-Men, as he does. He's just, the X-Men are going to stop us from taking over the world, so we have to stop them before we can do what we want to do. Same old story from Magneto at this point. So then we go back to the X-Men's HQ. We have Xavier talking with Cyclops, and then he shows him this invention that he's made. It's called Cerebro, which is a machine that detects mutant brainwaves. So here we have the first appearance of Cerebro, which becomes all too important, and it's a mainstay of X-Men comics. So Professor X informs him that Cyclops is going to be the new team leader because he has the best leadership ability, and he wants him to use Cerebro to continue the fight against evil. Whereas before, the professor could find the new mutants with his telepathy, so he has this machine now that'll do it for him, so they can still be the X-Men, still find new mutants, fight the good fight when he's not there. So the next morning, The X-Men learn of Xavier's decision. They decide to go into New York City to celebrate, but Scott says that he's going to stay because he needs to monitor Cerebro. He is the lone soldier at his post.
Ugh, Scott.
He says, "They've gone, and here I sit alone. Now for the first time I can realize how it must have been for the professor all those long months, always apart, always alone.
Oh, such a party pooper.
Forever alone." Scott Summers. So he's really taking this role very seriously of being the leader. He thinks he can't have any fun. He has to be the man on the wall, the lone man on his post.
What else is new?
So then we're joined at a circus across town. That circus never really left. It's still there across town, and Magneto's walking around in his full Magneto garb, and of course people just think he's part of the circus. So, hiding in plain sight. But then he runs across our old friend the Blob. He senses a mental block in the Blob's mind, and then after a fight breaks out between the Brotherhood and Carnival workers, the Blob hits his head. And what do you think happens next, Caitlin?
Does he get his memories back?
He gets all of his memories back. Yes. He says, "I remember now. I'm a mutant. The X-Men are my enemies, and they were afraid I'd join Magneto, but I will. I will join him." So, yes, everything they tried to prevent before with Xavier's mind beam just goes out the window. So then, of course, Cerebro's alarm goes off, alerting Cyclops that the Blob is back in action. There's little dials on the side of Cerebro that says known hostile mutants. And, of course, the Blob is blinking. Beep, 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 beep. We found the Blob. Go get him. So Cyclops tries to contact the rest of the X-Men, and he reaches Angel because, they're all out in New York City. But when we see the other X-Men, it's like total 1960s kind of club.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're listening. They're hanging out with like beatniks, listen to poetry. There's a small like background character that makes his first appearance here. His name is Bernard the Poet. So like this comic was heavily influenced by like the 60s beatnik culture whenever they were kind of like hanging out in their downtime.
Okay.
This was their friend's coffee shop, was this beatnik slam poetry place. But Angel stops all the fun because he says like, "Hey guys, we got to head back to the school because
Party pooper Summers.
Yeah. Well, he's like, we got to go help." Everyone gets back to the school, and as Iceman freezes up, he does it so fast he breaks all of his clothes, which is kind of funny. It's maybe like the one truthful thing that scientifically could have happened.
True.
Flash freezing his clothes. But they're listening to their radio, and then Magneto challenges the X-Men to a fight in an abandoned factory. So the X-Men fly out there in their helicopter. That's what they're using now. And they see the Blob standing there, but then Magneto, of course, tears apart.
Yeah, that seemed like a terrible, terrible idea.
They didn't really have plastics developed at this time. But
True.
so their helicopter gets torn to shreds by Magneto, and then they start fighting the Blob. After the course of the fight, Magneto, he takes all these metal-encased torpedoes, and he starts flinging them at the group. But also, the Blob is in the crosshairs as well. So he could care less about the Blob. It's one thing we've learned about Magneto's character. He only cares about himself and his goal.
Everyone's a means to an end.
Exactly. So he hurls these missiles at everybody, and then the Blob actually takes the brunt of the force of the missiles, saving the X-Men. But it was completely unintentional. But then Magneto orders the rest of the Brotherhood to retreat, and he calls forth yet another magnet car. This one looks like a horseshoe magnet again. It's pretty sleek, pretty awesome looking. Yeah. I don't know why he just didn't go into business with magnetic cars, because, hey, new industry. The future is now. Everybody has a flying car, and it's great. But so the X-Men offer to help the Blob since he's been abandoned by the Brotherhood. And the Blob refuses and says that he's done with fighting, and all he wants to do is just return to the life he knows at the carnival, and he just walks away, sad Charlie Brown. And then The X-Men have saved the day, reluctantly, but alas, they have no ride home. Angel flies away to hail a cab, and Cyclops tells him to pick up the tab because he's broke. He doesn't have any money. And
And the end.
that's how number 7 ends. The X-Men save the day, but they're broke, so they got to walk home. Okay, so we're moving on to X-Men number 8, the uncanny threat of
Unus.
Unus, the Untouchable. Unus?
Unus.
Well, you never know. That's the thing. You never know how to pronounce these things.
Just gotta say it with confidence.
That's right. Unus, the Untouchable was released in November of 1964. So, first things first, Caitlin. Looking at the cover, what do you notice?
Marvel Girl has yet another new headpiece.
Mask, constantly evolving,
Yes,
moving
mask.
forward with the fashion. This resembles a lot closer the first mask that she had, but the only difference is the hair kind of just spills out the side a little bit more than straight out
Right.
the back. It's kind of more like a cap.
Which kind of matches everyone else now.
Yeah, it's like a mask cap
Mask cap.
thing.
Swim
Th-
cap.
She kind of sticks with this one for the rest of these next couple.
Okay. I think the
comics.
last one was my favorite of them all.
Yeah,
But
well, you know,
whatever.
it's utility based. Can't be thinking about fashion. Got to think about utility. So this issue starts off with Cyclops training the X-Men. He's out of uniform in a suit.
Dapper.
He's helping Iceman develop his powers. So Iceman has always been covered with like this light snowy kind of, he looks like a walking snowman.
Mm-hmm.
But he's helping him develop his powers so he looks more icy. So he's actually becoming more the Iceman than the snowman. Yeah. So from now on, we're going to be seeing Iceman looking a little bit differently, more, like an actual man of ice. So he says they're all doing such a great time training. They're working on their skills, doing a great job. So he gives them the rest of the day off. So Jean tries to convince Cyclops to join, but of course he refuses.
Of course.
And then we learn that Cyclops likes Marvel Girl. But we also learn that Jean has now fallen in love with Scott.
Oh boy.
So you can see her thought bubble here. She says to Scott, "What about you, Scott? Won't you join us?" "I'm afraid I can't, Jean. I still have more work to do." And then, of course, her thought bubble says, "Oh, Scott, if only you felt about me as I do about you. But you don't. ... You just don't." Teen angst to
So
the max.
angsty.
So out on the town, we see Hank and Bobby. They see a child in need. Somehow a child has climbed to the top of a water tower. And so they need to save this child or else he's just going to fall to his death. They don't have time to switch to their X-Men uniforms, so Beast decides to just take his shoes off so his feet can climb the building. He's just in a suit. He climbs up there. He saves the kid, but he exposes himself to all these people. And then he and Bobby are attacked by the mob because they're angered that a mutant was hiding in their midst. I've heard that there's so many mutants in hiding, waiting to take over the world. Did you see how he just ran past us? Like he was afraid of us? Like he knew he's our enemy? So, all of a sudden, automatically, the mob turns on
mentality
them.
to the
They
max.
saved a child, but no. We're mad that this guy was hiding. And so the world hates and fears what they don't understand, Caitlin, which soon becomes the catchphrase of the X-Men. So Beast and Iceman escape back to the mansion. Infuriated, Hank tells Scott that he is quitting the X-Men. He's like, "I am done." And Scott has no idea what to do, so he contacts Professor X. And Professor X, via his mental powers, tells him don't do anything, and that he is too busy on his quest to find Lucifer.
Okay.
So that's where we're left with that. So if the question was raised, where did Professor X go? His unfinished business, it was to find Lucifer.
All right, then.
And we'll learn more about that in the next issue.
And to just not really care about the X-Men. He's like, don't worry, I'm too busy for whatever you have going on.
I'm too busy
Scott.
for your teen angst, Scott. No. So time passes. 1 week later. And in that week, Hank has somehow managed to become a pro wrestler. So, and of course, he's going by the same name, The Beast, in pro wrestling. And his next opponent that he's fighting is Unus, the Untouchable. And Hank just can't seem to lay a finger on him because Unus is a mutant and he has an invisible force field. So no matter what he does, Unus has this awesome ability where just has a protective force field around him. So he doesn't even really have to think about it. Just
boom.
Beast lunges at him and ricochets off. Force field for the win. And so Beast he's kind of dumbfounded. Well, why didn't I win? And so he looks out into the crowd and he sees a face out there and he recognizes it as Mastermind. And so he's just thinking like, oh, Mastermind knows Unus. They know each other. And so after the fight, we find out that, of course, Unus does know Mastermind because Unus wants to join Magneto's Brotherhood. But because of all the problems that Magneto's had recruiting people lately, he has Mastermind kind of testing this guy first before he joins. It's just like, before you join my gang, you got to do something for me. You got to prove your loyalty. So to do that, he has to defeat one of the X-Men before he can join the Brotherhood.
Okay.
So Unus ponders how he's going to do any of this, and he's walking home, and then all of a sudden he sees a bank being robbed. And so he's just like, hey, I can just use this money. So he robs the robbers. And so now he has all this money, and of course the X-Men are nearby in yet another helicopter. They're flying around on patrol. And so they see Unus with all the money, so they think he's the one who robbed the bank. Mm-hmm. And when in turn he kind of is, but he robbed the robbers who robbed the bank. Mm-hmm. The 4 X-Men fight Unus, but again, they just can't lay a finger on him. Cyclops' optic blast doesn't hit him, and they try to punch him, nothing. So the only real way to kind of take him out of the fight is Angel kind of flies him up into the air. And he's just like, well, you got to hang on or you're just going to fall to your death. There's nothing else for you to really do. And so what he does, he just kind of like leaves him on the top of a building. And he flies back to the X-Men. And they're just like, man, we gotta think about how we're going to stop this guy.
Well, how did he grab him?
Unus kind of had his hands. He can control his power.
Oh, okay. So if he's actively thinking about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
He can kind of turn off his force field.
He doesn't just automatically always have a force field.
The force field could be like really, really small around his body too. He can like extend it out.
Okay. As long as he's thinking about it. So if you were to come up and surprise him and he didn't know you were there and he wasn't ready for you.
Yeah. Well,
you could take him by surprise.
Yeah, but it works pretty instinctively.
Okay.
So you'd have to really take him by surprise, I would imagine.
Okay.
So the X-Men return to the mansion, but when they do, they find Beast there working on a new device. The Beast says that this device is going to increase Unus's power. And the X-Men start attacking the Beast because they're just like, why do you want to increase Unus's power? And so they think that Beast has joined the Brotherhood because he wants to help a new member of the Brotherhood. So Beast escapes, and then the X-Men chase after him. And Beast finds Unus at the gym, and there he fires his weapon at him, increasing his power. And he can feel it coursing through him. He's stronger than he's ever been. He's like super Unus right now. And he absolutely loves his stronger powers. But that soon changes when grass is always greener, when he realizes that he can no longer control his powers now.
Oh, snap.
He can't touch anything. And in this case, he can't touch a chair to sit down. He can't touch food. So, I mean, eventually he's going to starve to death.
Can't touch cigarettes.
Yeah, nothing. So, that's one way to quit cold turkey. But, so ultimately, to stop him, Beast strikes a deal with him. He just says, look, I'm going to reverse your powers. And you have to remember that the only thing that saves you is that I can blast you with this ray any other time. You know, so he basically just has the threat of that over his head. Like, basically, I can shoot you with this ray at any time if you step out of line. And then you won't be able to do anything.
Very clever.
So then, of course, Unus is saved, and he celebrates by eating a piece of cake. See him holding a gigantic piece of cake. And so Unus agrees to not be a bad guy anymore. He just wants to return to his wrestling career. And the Beast returns to the X-Men, and the day is saved. And for the ladies this time, we get an X-Men Extra special pinup of the Beast.
Look at that.
Indubitably yours, Hank McCoy.
Oh, you know what they say about big feet.
Need big shoes.
Exactly.
He appears to be juggling a lot of things
Yeah.
one-handed
Little
while balancing
Random things.
a little string with one finger.
Hmm.
Man, that Beast is agile. All right, we're almost there. We're at X-Men number 9 now. Enter the Avengers. This is in January of 1965. And it looks like we see the Avengers fighting the X-Men on the cover. But don't miss the return of Professor X. And wait till you meet Lucifer. So
Lucifer.
hey, we're finally going to figure out who Lucifer is in this issue. We start out in the North Atlantic, where a freighter is about to collide with an iceberg. Iceberg, dead ahead! Remind you of anything? It's Titanic. Yeah. So suddenly, it is blasted by an optic blast. And we find out, of course, it's Cyclops' power beam.
No.
Yep, and it takes a lot out of him, and then the people on deck are just like, oh, man, that kid's seasick. Get him out of here. He needs to find his sea legs. And so we find out that the X-Men are on their way to find and help Professor X on his mission that's in Europe. And Professor X contacts them, and he says that he has located his foe Lucifer in a cave in the Balkans. He wants the X-Men there in case he's unable to stop Lucifer. So he needs them there to be a kind of his contingency plan.
Oh, now you need us.
Yes. And also, we learn that it is because of Lucifer that Xavier has lost the use of his legs. So earlier, we just knew it was some childhood trauma.
Mm-hmm.
But now they're a little bit more specific that it was because of Lucifer that he can't walk.
Keep learning new things about you, Xavier.
That's right. That's what causes the mystery. That's what makes it fun. So we see Professor X, after he's done talking to the X-Men, he's got an awesome little like all-terrain wheelchair. It's got like tank treads and retractable arms, and it does everything.
It does do everything. Look
It's
at it.
it's an ATV wheelchair basically, and so he's on his way to find Lucifer's cave, but then he's captured by Lucifer, who yet again, as you remarked last time, he is a villain garbed in purple and red. He looks.
It is the color scheme. Isn't
He
it?
looks remarkably close to Magneto. The only difference is he has like a purple helmet and a little goatee.
Right. Yep.
So he's like Magneto's crazy uncle. So, but not really. So Professor X is captured by Lucifer, and then he pulls a gun on Lucifer.
Whoa.
Yeah, Professor X he means business. But then he learns that Lucifer has a contingency plan. He says that if my heart stops, a giant bomb is going to be detonated, causing worldwide damage. So he has like a pacemaker.
Mm-hmm.
If his heart stops beating, a little switch is going to go on, and then kaboom, calamity, and Xavier can't have that. So we have the X-Men arriving in a little village, but then also at the same time, the Avengers arrive in this village too. The Avengers are investigating strange emanations that were detected by Thor's hammer. So he's led the Avengers there, trying to figure out, hey man, there's something funky going on in this little town, so let's go check it out.
So who's all on the Avengers right now? Looks like Thor, Iron Man.
Yeah, the Avengers right now we have
Cap.
Thor, Iron Man, Captain America, Giant Man, and the Wasp.
Okay.
So this is like your classic first team Avengers. The only one that's really missing was the Hulk, but he was only on the Avengers for like the first 3 issues.
Okay.
And then he's like, screw you guys, I'm going home. So the Avengers are trying to figure out what's going wrong in this small town too, and Lucifer is kind of watching all of this unfold in his underground cave and on his little monitors. And Xavier's like, oh crap, the Avengers can't come down here and stop Lucifer or that bomb's going to go off. Mm-hmm. So of course he then tells the X-Men, you have to stop the Avengers from coming down here. You have to hold them off. So you have to fight the Avengers, X-Men, so they don't accidentally stop Lucifer and stop his heart. Mm-hmm. So of course we have a battle between the Avengers and the X-Men. So then Lucifer is watching this battle unfold on his monitors, and then Xavier takes the opportunity to knock him unconscious with his powers without changing his heartbeat. So he kind of like knocked him out, put him to sleep. Then the professor alerts Thor as to what was happening, because Thor was the reason why everybody was out here. Mm-hmm. And so Thor informs the rest of the Avengers that Lucifer has been defeated, so the Avengers leave.
Okay.
You know? So it was just a little quick little superhero battle as they used to do back in the day. Mm-hmm. A little misunderstanding, and everybody parts on good terms.
Okay.
So then Professor X leads the X-Men to the cave, where they find him and Lucifer, and they also find that gigantic bomb that's there. So now they have to try to defuse the bomb. So Xavier uses his powers to detect the bomb's weak point, and then he orders Cyclops to use his power beam at full force, but at a hairline beam to hit the fuse. Because if he messes up, it's worldwide calamity. It's a big bomb.
It's a big old bomb.
It is a really big bomb. But, of course, in that awesome X-Men fashion, they save the day. They stop the bomb with that hairline optic blast. Thip. And then here's the weird thing that happens. So after the bomb is defused, Xavier wakes up Lucifer with his mental powers. And wakey, wakey, eggs and bakey. But then Xavier says to him that, hey, Lucifer, the X-Men don't kill. And so we're going to let you go. You just almost blew up the world, but we're going to let you go because we don't
all
kill.
That for that.
I know. But he has to know that there's no place he can hide, because if he tries something again, the X-Men are going to come and stop him. So
Xavier.
Yes. And to round it out like the other issues, here we have something for the guys. We have a Marvel Masterwork pinup of no wonder they call her Marvel Girl. And so she's just, posing and floating some
I was just picturing people actually putting these up in their rooms.
I'm going to hang this one up. All right, we've made it. We're at our last comic of today.
Ka-Zar.
It's X-Men number 10, The Coming of Ka-Zar. Yes. Lord of the Jungle. Not quite Tarzan. But according to the cover, Caitlin, which of course was March 1965, unquestionably the most spectacular new character of the year.
Unquestionably.
No questions about it. And also,
the bee's knees.
He has a saber-toothed tiger.
He does. His own saber tooth.
Zabu. Who is, I think, the most spectacular new character of the year, but that's just myself. All right. So let's get the ball rolling here with The Coming of Ka-Zar. So, Iceman, Beast, and Marvel Girl are training in the Danger Room And of course, Cyclops is supervising because he's the new field leader. And he notices that Warren isn't there. So they go search him out. And of course, he's watching TV in his room. And it's a report about an Antarctic expedition. And so we're watching the report with them, and we see that a member of the expedition went missing, but then he was brought back to camp by a strange man only wearing a loincloth who was accompanied by a saber-toothed tiger. So they get startled, and then they vanish into the Antarctic snow after they, bring the guy back. But yeah, so the X-Men see this news report, and they're like, wow, a guy standing out in the snow wearing nothing but a loincloth. This guy's got to be a mutant. We got to go check this out. So they tell Professor X, because he's back at the mansion now. He's done with this little Lucifer mission. And Professor X tells him that no, Ka-Zar is not a mutant because Cerebro didn't go off when we became alerted to him. So, but I'm going to let you guys go investigate because you haven't had an adventure in a while. And I think this is go stretch your legs. And of course, I love this one right here. Look at Beast's face. There is so much joy.
So happy.
A mission at last. Yes. We get to go to the Antarctic, you guys. Not usually. He's reacting like he's going to Palm Beach, Florida, instead of the Antarctic. But what can you say? He's a scientist. Okay, so the X-Men, they then arrive in Antarctica. They travel to the site of the Jungle Man, where we saw him on the TV, and they find a crack in the ice. So Cyclops thinks it's a good idea to fire away at it with his optic blast, and then what that does is they find an entrance to kind of a tunnel. So they start investigating it. And so they go in and they start to travel in there, and the temperature starts to rise, and they reach the end of the tunnel, and then all of a sudden they see a prehistoric jungle in the middle of the Antarctic. And so we now see the first appearance of the Savage Land, which of course is just, so imagine Jurassic Park in the middle of Antarctica, but there's no one put it there. It's just there. It's the land of the lost in Antarctica.
Okay.
There's dinosaurs, there's cavemen, there's everything that we thought Jurassic times were back in the 50s. So it's kind of cool. And so Angel scouts ahead because he can fly. He can get there faster than the rest of the X-Men. But then he gets attacked by pterodactyls. And some giant pterodactyls. And so when the rest of the X-Men show up, Cyclops blasts them away. So Angel continues to fly ahead and scout the area. So the rest of the X-Men, they get attacked by the Swamp Men, which are just these kind of Neanderthal-looking guys who ride these giant emus with battle armor. And they knock the X-Men out with some swamp gas that they have cleverly hidden in like these coconuts. And then they kidnap Marvel Girl. Ka-Zar and Zabu show up, and then they go to the X-Men's rescue. But then the Beast tries to thank Ka-Zar, and he puts his hand on his shoulder like, hey, thanks a lot, guy. But then that offends Ka-Zar, and so Ka-Zar starts attacking the X-Men. Again, simple misunderstandings, and we get hero fighting hero. Then the X-Men subdue Ka-Zar, but then Ka-Zar's enemy, Magor, Maagor. Magor. He's the last of the ape-man tribe, we find out. He appears, and then Ka-Zar and him have a small little tussle, which of course Ka-Zar wins. So Ka-Zar then agrees to help them save Marvel Girl from the Swamp People. And so we cut back to Angel flying around the Savage Land. He sees a bunch of dinosaurs. He sees...
They do move in herds.
Exactly. He sees some long-necked dinosaurs, some short-necked dinosaurs, every type of dinosaur.
Sharp teeth.
Sharp tooth, everything. But then Angel flies into a net. uh-oh, he's been captured by some people too. And come to find out, it's the Swamp Men. And so they brought him back to their village. He's reunited with Jean, and then the two are brought to the top of this pyramid that the Swamp Men have in their little fenced-off area. And so this is great. He's reunited with Jean, but as they get to the top of the pyramid, they find out that the Swamp Men are going to sacrifice them to a giant T-Rex that they have hidden at the top of this pyramid.
Yikes.
And so his wings are bound, Jean's hands are bound, so they can't do anything but run away from this T-Rex, and they have no idea how they're going to stop it. Cut to the rest of the X-Men. They're with Ka-Zar. They arrive at the Swamp Men's little fortress, and they're trying to find a way to smash through their defenses. And so we see Jean and Angel fighting the T-Rex, and Jean uses her telekinesis to trip the T-Rex. She lifts up one of his feet, and he falls on his back, and they have those tiny little arms, so he has
T-Rex
trouble
trying to get up.
That's right, he can't do it. And so then she frees herself, and then the angel flies him away. But then Ka-Zar, he yells for Zabu, and then he comes with a mighty herd of mastodons, and they just stampede through the giant wooden fence that surrounds the village of the Swamp People. The X-Men and Ka-Zar, they round up and defeat all of the Swamp Men, and then we're kind of reaching the end of the day here, and they're just like, hey, do you want to come back with us? And he's like, nah, I'm good. Of course, he says it in more
No.
broken Tarzan speech, He wants to stay in the Savage Land. So the X-Men and Ka-Zar, they part as friends. So they've made an ally.
That's nice.
And so then Ka-Zar then commands the mastodons to cover up the entrance to the Savage Land with boulders to prevent any further intruders from the outside world from coming to the Savage Land ever again. And that's it.
And he isn't a mutant, right?
He's not a mutant.
Okay.
He's a normal guy. He is.
All right, just a normal dude.
He's like Tarzan.
Okay.
Basically, he is one with the Savage Land.
All right.
And that's it. That was X-Men 6 through 10. What do you think, Caitlin?
Pretty good.
What was your favorite issue?
I think I like the Savage Land.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good one. I always thought Unus's power was pretty cool.
Oh yeah.
So I like the idea of that they just made his power uncontrollable.
Exponentially stronger.
Yes.
Unbearably strong. Should make Ka-Zar pin up.
No, there's no pinup at the end of this one. Hopefully there'll be more to come soon because you want to collect them all.
That's right. Gotta catch them all.
You gotta get all those pinups. Will they ever come up with a pinup of the bad guys though? Because
bad boys.
You like the bad boys.
Right.
So is that what's coming
Yeah.
next? And
who wants a Toad pinup?
there's always one. So on that note, we will bid you adieu, and we'll say thanks for listening to episode 2 of I Read X-Men. This has been Randy
And Caitlin.
Check us out on Twitter at I Read X-Men. There's a lot of good visuals that go along with each podcast, and we hope you enjoyed listening to us. So until next time, read more X-Men. See you later.